Sex education is basically porn. Again,
Exactly.
that's not what it is, right? Sex education is important is for consent, for understanding other people's distances, their boundaries, where's different people's lines. How do you do it? If your mind is getting ready to expect what's coming. People usually tell you not to talk about stuff like this. It's very vulgar. Parents don't let you use the appropriate terminologies for the parts, right? So you just grow up calling it weird names, funny names. No, no, yeah,
Yeah.
PP. Everybody knows about Kama Sutra. Why have we not thought of it?
Welcome back to Asli Kahani. I'm your host Silla Sadvi, where today we want to mark as International AIDS Day with a crucial discussion on an intersection of AIDS and HIV with sex education as well. Globally, around 38 million people live with HIV, with nearby 1.5 million of new cases annually. In India, the HIV cases has been increased rapidly. This episode focuses on how these numbers are affected by sex education, or eventually commonly said as if one is not aware about it. Comprehensive sex education has been more into notice, and it has been shown in studies in a dramatical lower with high risk of HIV cases. Come learn why it is most important to learn about it and just break through these taboos and have an honest discussion about such issues against HIV and AIDS. Join us in this educational interaction with one of our amazing guests. So today we have Yog, with whom we are going to have a discussion about sex education. So hi Yog,
Hi,
welcome to the
thank
channel.
you.
In your opinion, what is sex education and why it is important?
I guess sex education can be termed as your basic understanding of bodies, you knowing whatever the outcomes are, okay,
Yeah.
birth control, prevention of, again, other diseases like AIDS, and your sexual and mental health.
Do you think one should be aware about it before they get into it?
Definitely, yeah, you should definitely be aware of it. See, imagine not knowing all the outcomes, right? So, let's say, for example, the diseases, that's like 1% of it, right? You not knowing how to control those diseases. You could again create unwanted pregnancies, yeah, underage pregnancies. Another reason I would say sex education is important is for consent, for understanding other people's distances, their boundaries, right? You need to know how to approach someone about this. How do you do it? Yeah, where's different people's lines, and yeah, your mental patience,
How does sex education benefit young people?
body positivities, right? People overthinking about their bodies, right? People might think they're fat, too dark, too fair, right? Having different colors of hair, patches in your body. People might think this as discomfort. They might not come out for this. So I think sex education would even teach you that everyone's body is normal, right? People can have ups and downs. There's nothing wrong in that. People have different emotions. Puberty definitely brings out a lot in men and even in women. Yeah, having a healthy sexual relationship and building it in a young age would build your character and again give you mental peace.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are the common myths and misconception about sex education?
I would say mainly would be people thinking getting your knowledge in sex education or getting your knowledge in basic sex activities would probably be you them thinking you would get an early on phase into sex, right? People
Yeah.
thinking you would get into sexual pleasures very early on in your young age itself. Another point would be people thinking sex education is all about physical actions, right? It's not just about that. It's about the emotional aspect of it, right? You need to know. Again, it comes back to consent, yeah, understanding people's boundaries, understanding your boundaries, understanding what you are and what you should do, what you should not do. Porn can be another factor in myth. I guess people think kids or like young audience get influenced with porn and then think sex education would be based on that, right? People
True.
thinking that sex education is basically porn. Again,
Exactly.
that's not what it is, right? You're not just learning about the physical aspects, even the other aspects. Okay, you just asked me about the myths of sex education, right? Tell me, why do you think comprehensive sex education is important?
For me, I feel like as much as I know, and I have been guided through that, and whatever I have read about it, I feel that comprehensive sex is morely about getting to know in detail. Sometimes, as in what is right and what is wrong. Sometimes, when you spoke about myth, which is like very real to me, and you just got straight into the point.
Yeah,
What sex education is all about, what you should do and what you should not. So the limits, the boundaries, the intimacy factor, and everything in detail. That's how you get to know and you build your education towards that particular
Okay.
factor.
Is comprehensive sex education biased towards culture or towards? Uh,
Towards your knowledge,
okay.
as in terms of sex education as well as sex.
So like parents teaching you,
Yeah,
other
like, yeah.
other guardians.
Yes,
Yeah.
and see, when people say that, if you have familiar with a few of the commercial movies, so they talk about it because it is important that people should know about it
Yeah.
through certain examples
Yeah.
or certain case studies. So if once somebody does some certain actions and they feel that that's wrong, but you should train them and you should educate them that what is right and what is wrong, rather
Yeah.
than just totally getting into that blaming that person.
Yeah.
I So I feel comprehensive sex is mostly about giving them knowledge in detail
Yeah. Of course.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And
Even
then,
correcting them when they come across some
yeah,
situations,
I
right?
mean, when they have a discussion, suppose you and me are talking about something,
Mm.
like right now.
Yeah.
So if you point out that I'm wrong at certain thing, you explain me about it and you elaborate in a way that I understand it.
Got it.
So
Yeah.
that's how it is.
Okay. Got
And for, I feel, in comprehensive education in such subject has to be very vocal, rather than you know you show certain
it. Pictorial.
pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you cannot talk about a person's
Consent with pictures or
yeah,
images
you
or
just have
videos.
to talk vocally,
Yeah.
because it's not that nobody would understand, it's
Got it.
very
Yeah.
basic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. In what direction is hookup culture leading to the young generation?
Hookup is basically your casual dating, right? Yeah. I wouldn't say dating, but casual
Yeah,
sexual activities, right? See, it's like a person's freedom, I would say, right? Not everyone needs to be in a relationship to get sexual desires. So, in one way, I would say that there's nothing wrong with the culture unless there are obviously the drawbacks that you get across, right?
also it has to be mutual and there should be a consent of the,
Yeah,
like,
those
of
factors
each
obviously
other.
come into place.
Hmm.
Yeah, again, then you get come to the part where it's about your emotional health. You going, let's say a person in the hookup culture, right? He's more, I would say, close to the emotions, right? You are not usually opening with people because you keep jumping from people. Maybe you would have a person or two, but there is obviously gonna be that large part of people that are gonna be empty. Yeah, they're gonna be sad. They won't have anyone to open up to. Maybe that's the reason they tend towards such a culture, and it
Hmm.
keeps on the same page for them. Yeah,
And also that leads to people, a lot of people are mostly shy to talk about, you know uh, intimacy and such. Why do you feel that people are too much shy to talk about the private parts as well?
I feel like cultural norms would play a big part over here. People usually tell you not to talk about stuff like this. It's very vulgar. Parents don't let you use the appropriate terminologies for the parts, right? So you just grow up calling it weird names, funny names. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, no, yeah,
Yeah,
PP.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you should definitely be taught the actual terminologies behind it. People be shy for another reason is them self-doubting, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
them thinking they're not good enough, them thinking expressing this would bring a negative impact on them, but that's not what it is about, right? People
Hmm.
need to be more open towards this,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Sex education is something that everyone needs to be aware of, not just this niche crowd. It's not something like rich poor, everyone needs to know it. Another reason people would usually be shy or like not talk about it would be their personal experiences, but then again, that's a part that doesn't come under this, but still they need to physically work on that because it might affect them later on, right? Any trauma.
Mostly people are not comfortable talking about such things as at all. They are like, we should not talk about it.
But
It's
why
a,
would that be? Again, that comes back to social and cultural also. That's why your parents teach you not to talk about it. Like if you look at different countries, parents are way more open there. Yeah, young people start getting their sex education in the age of 13, in the age of 16, right? But if you look at India, the average would be around 18, 20, 21. Yeah, and that too getting through different sources. Is it reliable getting from different sources? It's not, right?
that leads to my next question.
Yeah.
Do you feel that talking about sex is a taboo in India?
Sex is definitely considered as a taboo in India. People in India usually consider this a private matter. They don't really want to go around talking about this. If you look at Okay, let's say a normal middle class family, right? Majority of the people are religious over here. So let's say they're going for an arranged marriage, either of their boy, girl, whatever. Imagine them being open about their sexuality, right? Them talking about it. How would it affect them getting a proposal? That creates your borders. Those kind of lines are what creates people from not talking about it. So they feel like it should just not be talked about. Even if it's a thing people are shy about, there are going to be people who are going to talk about it. But then there are those lines that people in India, like let's say eating veg, non-veg, right? So they just won't consider talking about it. They would feel like it's vulgar, right? People
Yeah.
usually wouldn't talk about someone's body. Another example is people always wanting to cover their bodies in India, right?
Hmm. Are sex and intimacy the same?
Sex and intimacy are definitely not the same. Intimacy is more like it definitely involves sex, but it doesn't mean it's all about the physical pleasure, right? You have the emotional connection over there. Yeah, sex can be physical intercourse with or without intimacy, right? Again, the hookup culture comes without intimacy. People just do it because they want to. They maybe get pressure from somewhere because my friends have done it. Why shouldn't I have? That doesn't come under intimacy.
Attractive, getting attractive to somebody, then just because she has done it, why
Exactly.
not
Yeah.
me? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. So social stigma again.
Mm.
Yeah. People are more towards fulfilling these society's desires than their own, right?
True.
Intimacy comes when you're in a relationship or when you're building a relationship. Doesn't really have to be termed as a relationship. Maybe it's just a friend.
They
Uh,
don't care about the chemistry they need to have. They
yeah.
don't care about the emotional support they need to have. Mostly
Exactly.
they feel that if that person has done that,
Yeah.
why not me?
Exactly. I guess intimacy would come under someone you wanting to develop something more with a person, right?
True. So, ancient Indians wrote and taught Kama Sutra.
Yeah.
Then, why the modern education system refused to adopt it?
Kama Sutra is a book not just about sexual pleasures. It's not just about how you do sex. It's also about the emotional connection and the psychological connection behind it, even the philosophical connection in it, right?
Yeah, true.
So you just don't talk about the different methods of sex. You talk about a lot of different stuff. But people today are not open towards it. They already have an image for it, so they don't want to explore more. They feel like talking about it would be like,
More into gossip, I feel.
yeah,
Yeah.
they wouldn't come up with it, right? They wouldn't want to share it. They'll just keep it inside them. They're not going to talk about it outside. Then what's the point, right? If you're all anyways going to talk about it inside, just let everyone know. Everybody knows about Kama Sutra. Why have we not thought of it? Speech, like, why have we known from it through the back, right? Why do we have to go search for it? Why not just get thought from the beginning?
Hmm. So that leads to my next question. That is, why does modern education system refuse to adopt it?
Misinterpretation, I guess. That could also be a point where they think the younger individuals could get more involved with it in the wrong way, right? People would think that this would just start creating sexual tendencies for younger people to like just go ahead and do it. But that's not what it is again, right? You're learning if your mind is getting ready to expect what's coming. Yeah. You know what to do and you know how to do it. Another example for this would be the second century temples like Konark, Khajuraho, where they have those sex idols or naked idols over there. And people often go there, visit it, pray to it. But again, they don't talk about it, right? When it was so open at those times, why did we have to go backwards, right? Why do we have to be shy about it now?
The architecture made such idols just to show,
Yeah,
show people.
it was about
Yeah.
the artistics of eroticism, right? That's
Yeah.
what people wanted to show.
Hmm.
When they were ready to show it, they are ready to make it into sculptures, they're ready to talk about it. Why aren't we? Yeah,
Yeah. So thank you so much for your insight, and thank you, Yog, for being a fantastic guest for today.
thank you.
And we hope you join us more often in this
Definitely. Yeah,
podcast where we could, connect more information related to some other topics as well.
I'll take your perspective next time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining to our podcast, Asli Kahani. I'm your host, Sila Sadvi. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. If you have any suggestions or recommendations, if you want us to podcast about, please comment down below. Keep following us in other social media channels as well. Have a great day.